Hey, this is Peter Szabo and welcome to the Performance Masterclass. Now, this will be my attempt to condense literally a whole course's worth of information into a single video. It's going to be a lot of different things. It's just going to be the meat, no fluff, and I'll try to get through it as quickly as humanly possible. Now, even if you just learn one or two ideas and forget the rest, it'll still create massive improvements in your focus and performance. So don't feel like you have to remember and master all of these items at once. Because again, I'm going to be trying to condense a lot of information into one video. So let's dive right in. So what we're going to cover in this video is why most people fail, which goes back to lack of focus and performance. And then what are the components of laser-like focus and just overall high performance, right? Some of them are quality sleep, great diet and exercise. And I know you may be asking, what do these things have to do with business? And actually the answer is a lot. Then your workstation, certain tools and apps that you use, certain work systems, methods that you use, and mindset hacks as well. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Why most people fail. Here's the reason. If you look at the stats, 96% of businesses fail within 10 years. So only 4% survive. Now, survival doesn't mean they're profitable. Survival doesn't mean they're successful. It's just that they survive. And a very, very, very small fraction of that 4% ever even reach seven figures. I forgot the exact stats, but I think it was a fraction of a percentage. So that's pretty scary. You know, in entrepreneurship, I mean, it's a journey. It's a very interesting journey that you're embarking on where the odds are against you, right? And the fact that you're doing this is commendable, is honorable, it's amazing. So with that out of the way, why do people fail? There's many reasons behind it. I mean, there's this analysis done by CB Insights, and they've done this analysis of startups, the top 20 reasons they fail. And then there's a bunch of different things they say. Well, there's no market need, no product market fit. It's not the right team. We made some bad hires. No, it's the management that's bad. We ran out of money. Made bad decisions, shitty marketing. There's many, many, many reasons why businesses fail. But these are all pointing at different components that went wrong. And there's two things that people rarely talk about that are actually causing these things to happen in the first place, that are causing all this mess. And really it comes down to lack of focus and poor performance. Just as a little side note, if you asked Warren Buffett and Bill Gates to write down what their number one secret to success is, and I'm not just saying this hypothetically, they've actually done this. A reporter once has asked them, they both wrote it down, and then they were supposed to show the paper. And guess what? Both of them wrote down the same thing. Can you guess what it was? Focus. So the richest man on earth, maybe not anymore, Elon overtook him, and one of the best investors in the world, they all say it's focus. And then of course, focus is closely correlated to high performance. So let's check this out. Focus really, the way I talk about this in this training, is really the ability to distinguish the vital few, the actions that actually move the needle, that grow the company, that are meaningful, from the trivial many. You know, all the actions, projects, things that are nice to have, maybe a fancy website or a nice logo or pumping out a ton of content or whatever. It could be many things that keep you busy but not really productive. It's kind of like the 80-20. The 20% would be the vital few. If you just focus on these, they'll get you most of the way. And then there's the 80. There's a lot of things you could do that maybe will create a little bit of incremental increase or a little bit of progress. But then most people focus their time on those things, and then a lot of people major in minor things. They do these 80% really well, or that's where they put most of their effort, and then they don't really succeed. They don't make nearly as much money as the competitor who focused on the vital few. So focus in business is absolutely critical, right? Because you're your boss. You decide what you're going to focus on. There's no one that's going to pull you back like, hey, look here, maybe except, other than a mentor. So it's your job to really understand what you should be focusing on at different stages of your growth, and then making sure that you do focus on the things that matter, because that's what's going to move you forward. Now, performance, in my opinion, is the ability to execute on what matters in an effective and time-efficient manner. Now, what are the causes of poor focus and lack of performance? And trust me, there's many, many reasons, and this list in no way, shape, or form is exhaustive. There could be a lot of additional things. But I do think at least these few that I put here are some of the key ones, or some of the biggest ones that are plaguing today's society. Starting with ADD culture, attention deficit disorder. Look, in the 21st century, we're flooded with excess stimuli and distractions that make it nearly impossible to do the work. We're getting bombarded with ads. We're being told, this is what we should do. This is how we should dress. This is good enough. That's not good enough. We're getting constantly bombarded with messages and emails when it's impossible to work. They've even done studies and found out that the human's attention span is now worse than a goldfish's. That's crazy. So how are you supposed to sit down and do deep work? If you've ever read that book, I forgot the guy's name, Cal Newport or someone like that. Deep work, meaning the ability to really sit down without distractions and focus on stuff that actually matters and get it done, right? Such as building a webinar, such as building a VSL. These are tasks that require focus, that require the ability to just sit down and use your full brain, intellectually putting this complex puzzle together. It's hard to do. And many people avoid these tasks because it's a lot easier to just check an email, reply, give someone a call, post someone on, something on social media, and then we think we are productive, then we think we are doing things that'll bring in clients, but instead we're pushing that webinar, postponing it, procrastinating, and that could be the one thing that'll grow your business. I mean, I can tell you from experience, a good webinar or a good VSL, a video sales letter, can literally be the backbone of $1 million business. That thing alone, you get that figured out, you run some ads to it, now you're pumping out clients left and right, profitably, consistently, predictably. And you can get that done in a day, maybe a week, if you're pushing it. Now, most people take months to do it simply because they're distracted. And if they only did that one thing, they'd be miles ahead of the competition. So this is what I'm talking about. Literally the culture, literally society is making us a little bit ADD. That's why more than ever, kids have higher cases of ADD, ADHD than ever in the past, even adults. So this is a big problem. And, you got to understand, this is how these apps make money. Facebook makes money by keeping you on the app and distracting you and giving these dopamine hits. So does YouTube. So does a bunch of these other companies. It's engineered this way. And if you understand that, now you can take some conscious, deliberate action to prevent that from happening. Otherwise, you're going to be sucked in, you're going to be distracted constantly, and you'll never get anything important done. Now, I'll try to go through the rest of them a little bit quicker. I don't want to take too many detours, even though it's important information, just to finish this video in time, because it could literally take 10 hours to talk about all of this. Next, poor diet. Look, nowadays, people have high-carb, refined sugar diets causing brain fog, blood sugar spikes that make us moody, forgetful, even, connects to ADD, and a host of other issues. Now, of course, I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. Consult your physician. But it is proven that poor diets lead to not only physical, but mental issues. And amongst the mental issues are ADD, lack of focus, brain fog, etc. And trust me, if you're ever on a bad diet and you try to work, especially after a heavy meal and you get that carb crash, it's impossible to perform. So you can have the best to-do list, best everything, but if your diet is not dialed in, it's going to be near impossible to be at your best. If you look at any athlete, in NBA or soccer, you name it, they have amazing diets because that's what makes them perform at their best. Now, you may be saying entrepreneurship, business, what does that have to do with sports? And the answer is a lot. You may not be using your hands or legs to perform. You're using your brain. You're using your, intellect, which still is fueled by the food that you put in your body and how you sleep and how you exercise. So you absolutely need to be on top of your physical, well-being to perform at your best. Poor sleep, same as above, lack of quantity, so if you get less than 8 hours a day, and quality of sleep. So you can get 8 hours, but say your REM and deep sleep are low, it doesn't matter. It's going to cause issues in the body and the brain. Lack of exercise, same thing. It's going to create lack of blood flow, poor circulation. It's not going to secrete the brain-derived neurotrophic growth factor, BDNF, and a host of other issues leading, again, to mental, physical issues. Then maybe you have a poor setup in systems. Even myself in the past, I used to have a shitty office setup, a bad workstation, not the best systems to work, and just a lack of optimal defaults, which means really setting up your environment in a way so the optimal choice becomes the default one. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Then there's a lack of wisdom as well, especially when we're starting out or early on in the career. By lack of wisdom, I mean there's a lack of experience of knowing what matters, what doesn't. I see so many newbies working so hard on blogging and posting on TikTok and you name it and reaching out to people, and they're working so hard, 10 to 12 hours a day, but creating little to no progress. Why is that? Because they're working on things that do not matter. And you can be working 20 hours a day, I don't care. If you don't work on what actually matters, it's not going to matter. Then bad hires, bad teammates. When you hire and delegate, but you hire the wrong person, it's not going to save you time. It's going to cause more headache and harm and more wasted time. And big mistake I also see very, very often. Then mindset issues. Look, it's not uncommon to have procrastination, anxiety, imposter syndrome, shiny item syndrome. You probably heard a bunch of these things, and many other things causing issues and just lack of focus and performance. That's what all of these things tie into. Now, let's go through the list one by one, and I'll walk you through what you can do on each component to improve it. Number one, quality sleep. Look, sleep is one of those fundamentals. If you don't have this figured out, oh gosh, it's going to be causing issues. And it's something that I'm still working on myself. I've read countless books, done sleep studies, and it's an area of life I'm definitely investing a lot into because there's improvements to be made. And I realized it is absolutely quintessential and critical for performance and health. So number one, you want to get actionable data. I recommend that you get an Oura ring. I highly recommend it. Just put it in Google. It's like $200, and it'll allow you to measure your sleep. It's going to look at a bunch of variables, your heart rate variability, your body temperature, how long you sleep, how long it takes for you to fall asleep. And then it looks at all of these metrics, and it creates an aggregate metric called your sleep score, which really is a number out of 100. Now, if you're in the 80, 90, you're doing great. If you're below 60, there's a problem, and you want to look into it. Now, I didn't know this, but if you're snoring or have sleep apnea, that's a big red flag. It's a big issue. Because sleep apnea essentially means when you fall asleep or try to fall asleep, the muscles in your throat start to relax and they compress the airway. Sleep apnea technically means that they compress too much, they relax too much, and you literally go without air for a little period of time. So you wake up in the middle of the evening with high blood pressure, kind of your nervous system just jolted, and you keep doing that throughout the whole evening. Some people wake up every few minutes. And because it's like a micro awakening, you may not even be aware of it, but it's happening throughout the night. And then you wake up in the morning tired, can't even get out of bed. Well, my friend, you may have sleep apnea, or at the very least snoring, which is the same thing, except it's not that bad yet for you to completely go without oxygen. It's also getting constricted, that airway, and that's why it makes that snoring noise. Okay, again, I'm not a doctor. Go check it with a doctor, physician. It's not medical advice, but it's something that I struggled with myself, and now I got a specific mouth guard to help with that. Now, the ROI on fixing this is huge. It didn't make my sleep perfect. I still think there's improvements to be made, but it did increase my score like 10 or 20 points, which is quite significant. And I definitely went from waking up tired to waking up energized. Now, number 3, make sure that your room is cold, dark, quiet. You just want to remember those 3 objectives. These are really sleep fundamentals. Make sure it's quiet. Make sure it's cold. If you need to open the window, or if it's this middle of the summer, then just turn on the AC. And make sure it's dark, pitch dark. Get these blackout curtains and just make sure it's pitch dark. Those are all factors that are going to help you sleep. Then sleep hygiene. This is essentially a routine, what you do before you sleep to maximize it. Now, I personally either take a warm shower or a hot Epsom salt bath. That's a form of magnesium, and that really nicely calms down your nervous system, helps you get better sleep. I've tested it with Oura Ring before and after. It helps a lot. Now, I almost forgot to mention this, back to Oura Ring. you critically need it because you need an objective measurement of the quality of your sleep. A lot of people say, I don't need anything fancy like that. It's $200, whatever. I feel how I sleep. Like I wake up, I'm tired, or I wake up, I'm energized. And it's really impossible to make progress if you don't have any data. You might have heard this before. What gets measured gets managed. What you measure can finally improve. So you really truly need that objective data. Otherwise, you're going to be shooting in the blank. And if you go on this subjective feeling like, I think I slept a little bit better, you're not going to know if any of the things I'm talking about is actually working or it's just placebo or it's just you making it up. So make sure you get the Aura Ring. I promise you it'll yield a massive ROI. Now, supplements, some things you can take, there's so many, but some of the ones that have worked for me is just magnesium, potassium, melatonin, just small doses. There's a bunch of herbs you can take, valerian root, blah, 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 helps you with sleep. So check those out as well. Then just de-stressing, right? If your cortisol spikes super high and you're just stressed out and you literally just finished work and now you're trying to jump in bed and you're still thinking about all the problems at work and solving puzzles in your head, it's going to be near impossible to sleep. So I recommend at least an hour or two before you go to bed, take some time to decompress. Read, play a video game, watch Netflix, whatever you need to do, talk to your wife or husband, whatever you want to do again, but anything other than work, because that helps you just refocus, get away from this mode of fixing problems, and it'll help you fall asleep faster, deeper, and just overall get better sleep. Also, you may want to consider meditating before sleep. I do it often, not every day, but it helps a lot as well. Then if you want to get all fancy, you can look into biohacks, such as getting an infrared mat. I've got one. You can listen to binaural beats before sleep. They align your brain waves to specific brain waves, such as theta or delta, help you get deeper sleep. Neurofeedback helps as well. A sleep mat, like with acupressure points. So I've tried a bunch of these things, probably spent thousands of dollars. And I would only recommend getting into these advanced things because one, they're expensive, and two, they're kind of more in the advanced section. If you really want to get key and big improvements in your sleep quality, look at some of the fundamentals. Make sure room, cold, dark, quiet, basic sleep hygiene, maybe get a simple magnesium supplement, definitely get Aura, definitely rule out snoring and sleep apnea. If you do, and of course, de-stressing is important as well. If you do those things, you'll be on your way. Now, an extra thing you can do is also very simple. It's like a one-time thing, set up and forget. Just install this app on your laptop and phone called Flux. And essentially it removes this blue screen or blue light from your screen at night, which would normally keep you awake, right? These artificial lights, this blue light that we get from, the lights in the ceiling or our, monitors, they keep us awake. They just keep your nervous system wired. So it essentially makes your desktop a little bit more warm in color, like more orange, more reddish. And it's proven to help you sleep better. So it's a very simple thing you can do. It's free and it'll help your quality of sleep. Moving on. Coming to diet and exercise, I would definitely recommend you check out Weston A. Price's work on diet, especially his book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. It's a very fascinating read. He's essentially studied the modern diet and then also the diet of tribes all over the world who've still eaten the traditional typical way, of just meat, natural fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. And he noticed that people who consumed this natural diet, they were healthy. And it wasn't like vegan or carnivore. They ate all sorts of stuff, even dairy. But they were really healthy, had really good dentures, really good bone structures, no misalignments in their teeth, no tooth decay. So it's just fascinating, right? And these are the people who don't have access to modern medicine and toothpaste and all this crazy stuff, yet they're more healthy than the average human being. And essentially he discovered, this is really the core idea that I got away from it, is look, humanity hasn't yet fully evolved to our chemically refined diets. Thus, the more natural and real food you eat, the better. It just works better with your body, with how this machine was built. So, long story short, eat real, natural foods, avoid processed stuff, especially refined sugars, and that'll help you improve your health. Check out the book. It's really cool. It'll explain it in more detail. And I think you'll find it very, very helpful. Now, little side note, I've read many books on this. I've read countless articles, invested a lot of time and effort into this, even money, hired coaches after coaches. I could give you a list of 20 books, but I really think this is the one book, the creme de la creme out of all of them, because it really summarizes everything. It's that one book that kind of put an end to my search. Because I was looking at, all right, what's the best diet? What's the best way to heal? And there's 1,000,001 diets, from ketogenic to intermittent fasting to vegan to Atkins to you name it. And then this book, in my opinion, really showed me the golden thread, like the underlying principles, first principles behind all health books, and really put a nail on the coffin, like this is it. This is the core idea. Now, when it comes to exercise, look, just find something you enjoy, do it a few times a week, whether that's sports, martial arts, quick high-intensity interval trainings, or at least, mix some music in or videos while you're running on a treadmill. Bottom line, get moving at least a few times a week for optimal mental and physical health, right? Because your mental health directly correlates to peak focus performance. When you don't get the right diet, exercise, and especially sleep as well, it's just you're not going to be at your best, especially when it comes to mental health. You may experience things like brain fog or blood sugar spikes. You're going to be moody. Anxiety is going to kick in, maybe even a little bit of depression. And when you feel those kind of feelings, it's very hard to perform at your best. Again, I know we're not on the soccer field, we're not on the basketball court, but we still need to be at the best of our health to use our brain at its peak performance, really. Moving on, workstation setup. Now, if you put me in a dark room with a shitty, slow Windows computer, poor internet connection, a messy desk, a messy desktop, slow loading speeds, a crappy chair where my back hurts, no wonders. You'll underperform and I'll underperform, okay? So there's a way you can set up your office for simplicity and performance. Now, what I recommend and what I use is just one monitor or laptop and a mouse. There's been some studies that apparently a mouse is faster than using a trackpad, so get a mouse. It's a little investment, and all those milliseconds add up over months and years, and you'll be performing just a little bit better. Now, get a quality ergonomic chair. Look, if you're going to be working 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 hours a day, might as well get a quality chair. I've invested like $1,000 each into Erman Miller. Then get rid of clutter and distractions in your environment, not only in your laptop, but around it on your desk, in your office. Try to get rid of it. One more thing, you may not have an office. Currently myself, I'm in the living room because we have a pretty big living room with a massive kitchen table, so I just put it here and I really enjoy it. But a couple tips around that, if you do not have an office dedicated for your work, make sure, for the love of God, you do not work from your bed. I've seen some people do it. I think it's a terrible habit, and you're going to have terrible sleep because you start associating work to your bed. So the next time you go to bed, you're going to be thinking about work, associating it to work, and you're also going to suffer in terms of performance because your brain already made links like, hey, bed is for sleeping, so you're going to get sleepy, you're not going to perform very well, and it's just going to be a disaster, okay? Also, ideally, if you can, just like I did, my office setup is not in my bedroom because, again, in your brain, it's associated to sleep. So ideally, put it out of the room. If you want to be in your kitchen or a specific office room, either way is fine. But if you can, then try to be out of your bedroom. Then get a quality laptop. I've tried Macs, I've tried Windows, and I like both. But frankly, in my experience, Mac has been better. I know it's a little more expensive, and in some cases, it's overpriced. But what you're paying for is really the user experience, the user interface. It's so simple, so clean, good looking. It just makes your work feel more pleasant, in my experience. I've worked on Windows, and I've invested thousands into powerful laptops, don't get me wrong. But still, the amount of technical errors and stuff that comes up, it was just such a pain in the butt. So I wanted to get away from it. Also, it's just a bit more of a complex setup, etc., etc. And it just wasn't such a pleasant experience working when I was working on a Mac. So that's why I got a MacBook Pro. I typically get the latest. And that, to me, even though it's a bit more expensive, you can spend 4 or 5K on the maxed out version, which is typically what I get. In my experience, it's been so worth it. Because if it makes work just a little bit more enjoyable for you, because you can appreciate the sleek user interface and the great user experience, and you don't have to, have these headaches with all these tech issues and updates. I mean, if that helps you just put 10% more into your work, it's already made a significant ROI. So that's how I look at it, and that's why I use a MacBook Pro. Then, of course, get a fast internet connection. Look, if you have 50 megabytes versus 1,000 or 2,000, I mean, the difference is going to be massive. That extra second it takes to load up a website over a period of a week, month, years, is going to save you, well, if it's taken longer to load, it's going to cost you so much time. Instead, if it was just faster, you would have saved so much time. So it's a simple thing, but you really need to make sure you have good internet. And then ideally, what you want to do is connect it to the Ethernet so you get the full speed, because Wi-Fi is simply not going to cut it. And of course, zero clutter on your desktop and browser. So many times I see people's desktops with 20 million items, and then their browsers, the bookmarks with just kind of looking messy and everything. And I know this is a little bit cliche, but I've really experienced this too, that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Your desktop, your living space, how you live is a representation of what's going on inside your body, inside your mind. So if I look at someone's desktop and I see a million items and it's just messy, chances are they have a messy mind and just a little bit of ADD going on. They've also said this, if you're hiring someone and if you happen to have an in-person interview, go look at their car, and that'll tell you so much about the person. Now, I don't mean what type of car they have, as if it's a Lamborghini or a regular Toyota. That's not what I mean. But how do they keep it in shape? Like, is it a nicely maintained car, clean, impeccable? Or is it a messy car with, crumbles of food and bunch of stuff everywhere, and it's messy and it hasn't been cleaned in 2 months? Because if you see that, chances are that's how they operate in their life, in their business, in their work. They're just a messy individual who's not going to perform, right? And if you experience something like that, or a teammate, that's a red flag. That has to change. That has to be better, because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to now develop OCD tendencies. But, if you want to get to 7, 8, 9 figures, there needs to be a certain standard that you uphold yourself, your company, and your team to. And that's really the only way to get to these levels. And I'll talk about that more in just a little bit. Now, let's talk about performance tools and apps. One that I like to use is called Cold Turkey. It's an app that blocks different apps and websites that are stealing your time. You can put in a schedule. I personally put it from essentially midnight to like 5, 6 p.m. And I block all social media distractions, whatever that could take my time away. So even if I wanted to distract myself, it's blocked. I cannot access it. And there's even a password to it that I on purpose forgot. So I don't even have the password to it. So there's no way for me to cheat the system. In the past, I would try many of these blocking apps, but I would always find a way to outsmart it. I would find like a backdoor way to get into it, or change the date and time on my computer, and I was able to manipulate it. If I really wanted to get into YouTube, I could. Then I found Cold Turkey, and it's really it's like Pandora's box. So you can't even open it. So that's a really good way to kind of create that discipline with your workload and in your computer without having a plan B. Like, you really have to wait till that time goes down. Just check it out. It has a bunch of cool features. Next is an app called Focus that I use on my phone, laptop, and even my Apple Watch. It syncs up, and it essentially gives me these Pomodoro timers. Now, the app I use, like I said, is Focus. There's many very, very similar apps, typically called like Pomodoro app, Pomodoro timer. And it's this whole idea that you work in chunks of time and then take breaks. I personally do 45 minutes of work with 15-minute breaks. Many times I just skip the break and I just keep putting in 45 minutes, 45 minutes, 45 minutes, and then take a 15-minute break. And that way I just keep working at my best. You can even put in targets, like you want to start with 3 hours of quality work today. You get to it and eventually you keep increasing it. There's also charts of your performance, so it'll tell you how many rounds you've done, how many hours you've worked, how many minutes you spend in break time each and every day, so you can keep a really nice log of how you're performing and evolving over time. Then there's Chrome extensions, and I'm sure these are there for Firefox and a bunch of other browsers as well. Kill Newsfeed is one. It blocks the Facebook newsfeed and distraction center, so that's great. That way, if you're using Facebook like I am to communicate with my team or clients, whatever, I'm not getting distracted. DFTube, distraction-free YouTube, it blocks YouTube's essentially newsfeed, so you're not getting distracted with all these videos the algorithm is trying to hook you in with. Adblock goes without saying, blocks the ads, helps load time. Rescue Time, free app, works in the background and is constantly tracking what sites you spend time on, what apps you got open. And then every time, well, maybe when a month passes, I pull it up and it shows me each and every month where my time was allocated. And each month it surprises me because I always find time that was wasted. And I see, wow, this month, maybe I spent 5 hours on YouTube or whatever amount of time, or this week. And then it gives you insights like what you need to cut, where you need to spend more time on, etc., etc. Asana is what I use to delegate tasks to my team to manage my own to-do list. It's really like an advanced, fancy to-do list. I highly recommend it. There's another video in week 5 walking you through exactly how we use it. Then your calendar, you want to set up your weeks here and use it to manage your life. And then, of course, the life sheet from the Source Hacker memory flipping system to track your rituals, routines, performance, KPIs, and more is a very, very key part of just high performance. So this is the calendar, for instance, how I do it. So I just create one event, different color. I put it to repeat each and every day. And so I start my day typically with a 2-hour routine where I review my goals, I log the previous day, and I start to focus, I start to work. Okay, now some days I have specific things to do. In red, it's kind of like the most important, so I look at my ads. This way, there's no way for me to miss it. If it's in my calendar, then I'll be looking at my ads. And in another video, the CEO's Daily Checklist, I talk about the importance of IGAs, income generating activities. If you do not schedule them, if you don't have a system to do them consistently, well, guess what? Your income's not going to be consistent. So that's why it's in my calendar, so there's no way for me to miss it. Then also I schedule in different meetings I have, or just me looking into the Facebook group to interact with our customers. Then here I've got a little exercise thing. I can choose from a bunch of these different items. Then I got a sleep hygiene routine to wind down. That would be, just getting away from work, relaxing, reading, or say even playing a video game. Excuse me, I keep pushing it to the next. Then some other calls, Q&A calls I've got here. Any other item I just put in with blue. Doing neurofeedback, doing a weekly review, stuff like that. And then I've got some of the other items there as well, like flights, or if I have to pay taxes. So I just, run my whole life out of this Google Calendar. Next would be the life sheet. This is one example. Some of the private stuff I blurred out. When I wake up, sleep score. Like I said, it still needs improvement. It's been getting better lately. Meditation, different mindset routine I have, exercise, looking at my life map, so the goals and everything. How many focused hours I put in each day. So you see average is 7.3 hours every day. What's the IGA I've done today? Right, so you see sometimes it's a new funnel, it's a webinar. Sometimes it's not really an IGA, but I'm just catching up on stuff. Anything I learned or read about, diet, so I give it a score from 1 to 5. Anything 1 to 2 is good. If it's more than 3, that's not good. Log what I eat, so I literally write it down. I write down the amount of liquid assets, write down the amount of cash flow coming in, take notes, and then I have the progress pulse. So I look at these 10 habits over here in the red, and I calculate how many have I missed. So for instance, over here, if I missed 1 out of these red ones, then that'd be minus 10%. So I got 90%. And I have like a little system set up with my right-hand man over here, is that if I mess something up, I pay him $5 for a ritual that I missed. So you can see some days it goes up to 20, 10. I've tried many different formats, paying 50 or $100. I just find this $5 or $10 each is more realistic. And then that way each month I donate this money to charity on top of any other donations I may want to make. And that kind of does something good. And it also keeps me more focused, more driven, because it's giving me a little bit of inflicted pain whenever I miss a routine or didn't perform as I was supposed to. But overall, you see the progress pulse is above 87%. So to me, anything above 80 is great. I don't expect 100%. I really don't think perfection exists. I mean, things happen. You may have a bad day, whatever. But anything above 80, I think is a good day. And then finally, I have an audit. So like I said, my coach slash right-hand man looks into this, puts their name down, that way signalizing like they've reviewed it, they checked it. And maybe if they see that there's too many days in a row where maybe I didn't learn or my sleep wasn't good, then they just let me know and talk about it and do like a little bit of a coaching session to make sure like, hey, I'm on track essentially. So moving on, work systems. A couple things I use, again, there's a million things, but I think some of the most important ones is the Eisenhower matrix after the president, or general, I'm not sure, I don't recall exactly, but it helps you prioritize. It's this decision matrix. You look at each and every item in your to-do list, and then you ask yourself, is it urgent? Is it important? If it is urgent and important, then do it now. If it is important but not urgent, then decide when you're going to do it. Schedule a time. If it is urgent but not important, then delegate it. Someone in your team can do it. If it is not urgent, not important, then either delete it or maybe get to it later. Okay? So that's a very simple matrix that you can use, and it really helps you be more deliberate with what you do. Because it's oftentimes easy to just get a long list of things to do, and we start to work on all the urgent items. But just because something is urgent, it doesn't mean it's quite that important or that someone else couldn't do it for you. Really, what moves the needle forward are these two. The important items, whether they're urgent or not urgent. So, Pomodoro timer helps you get things done. So I already discussed that. There's a bunch of apps for it. Typically, it works in 20 to 5 minute cycles. I personally upped it because I found it a little annoying to get a notification every 20 minutes that, hey, you got to do a break. So I just do 45, 15, and it works really well for me. And then lastly, time tracking. So you can do this manually. Just set an alarm every 30 minutes, and on a piece of paper or spreadsheet, you write down what you're doing. And or you can do it automatically with an app like Rescue Time, and it'll just help you see where your time goes so that you can continuously allocate it better and better, right? Last one, mindset hacks. If you're procrastinating, essentially there's some fear behind it, right? Maybe you're afraid that if I launch this webinar and it doesn't work, what if I fail? Right? Some people even have fear of success. Well, what if I succeed and, then I don't know, I'm going to leave my loved ones behind because I'm going to be earning more than them, where I start traveling the world and I don't keep in touch with them, right? So there's a lot of internal fears. You can use memory flipping to deal with them. So find out what you're avoiding and deal with it. Next, when you feel overwhelmed, what I recommend is you chunk the task or the project down. What I personally do is literally walk around and start visualizing in my mind how I would tackle the task, right? What steps would I take in what order? And sorry, there's a couple typos. Then just create that to-do list on what to do first. So say I have to launch a new funnel, right? I would literally start visualizing, okay, what's step one? Well, I go to ClickFunnels and I hit duplicate an existing funnel that we already have. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, that's not too hard. That'll take 10 seconds, right? Step two. All right, make some edits to that funnel. Change the headlines, some of the text, some images. All right, that's like 15 minutes, no big deal. Step three, maybe prepare the new slide deck for the new VSL. All right, that may take 30 minutes, 60 minutes, but it's doable, right? And I start to look at it this way. As I'm thinking it through, I'm also taking notes. I'm chunking the task down. And initially, a big overwhelming task, such as getting a webinar out there or a new funnel, will really start to seem a lot more manageable. And as you literally give your brain these pictures, like, all right, this is how we're going to do it, and you start to realize, like, all right, this takes 10 seconds, that takes 30 seconds, this is 10 minutes, you will gain that confidence and that clarity to be able to go through it no problem. All right, people literally eat planes. It's been done, no kidding, but they do it one bite at a time. So just take baby steps. And if you're procrastinating because you're overwhelmed, then you just need to do this visualization to get clear and then just begin. Now, if you have lack of drive, some people experience that some days. If it's an overarching thing, you may really want to look at your passion because your business may not be aligned with your passion. I know it sounds cliche, but you'll ask anyone successful, they always say to be the best at the world in something, to be amazing in your business, you have to be passionate about fundamentally what you're doing. If you're not, you're just not going to be naturally driven to put in the amount of time and effort to require to become world class at something. And really, the people that get the most rewards are world class. They're the best, right? If you're really good, well, you maybe get good rewards. Or let me actually take it a step back. If you're good, you get poor rewards. If you're great, you get good rewards. If you're excellent, you get better results. But if you're brilliant, if you're the number one, you get all the rewards. All right, that's just how business works. So good's not going to cut it. And if you're frankly not passionate about what you're doing, I would highly recommend looking into something that intertwines with your passion. For instance, I'm passionate about business, thus I'm doing this course. Even more so, I'm passionate about mindset and psychology. That's why I'm doing Memory Flip and Source Hacker. And of course, there are things that I don't like, still have to do accounting and pay taxes and all that. So I'm not saying each and every part of the business has to be enjoyable and like you're on a honeymoon, but the overarching thing, the macro picture, you have to be in love with what you do. And that's really what's going to allow you to be at your best, put in the time, energy needed. And that's just how, people become really successful at a certain thing. If you don't have it, you may really want to reconsider what you're doing. Just take out a piece of paper, journal about it, because in the long term, you have to figure that out. One more thing, if you're starting out, right, and you're just starting to create cash flow, it's fine. My very first business wasn't my passion project. So don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that right away from day one, you need to be crystal clear on your passion and you need to be doing it. That's typically not how it works. It's a process. People figure out their passions over time, sometimes by accident, sometimes by doing different exercises and stuff you can find online. Nevertheless, don't feel like you have to be, you already have to be crystal clear on your passion and doing it right now, especially if you're starting out. That's not how I did it, right? And eventually you get clear on it. Now you got some business experience. Now you got some capital. So now you have an even better shot at succeeding at your passion project, right? So there's just one side comment I wanted to add. Now, if you have that lack of drive for a shorter period, maybe this day or this week, so it's not like the passion issue, then what you want to do is just visualize your goals, list them down, literally write them down, and list 10 reasons why you must attain them and 10 things it'll cost you if you don't. It's very simple. I know it's very basic. It's nothing like sexy and groundbreaking, but it works because it really gets you clear and focused on what you want, and it creates pleasure that'll pull you, all the reasons why you must attain it. And also, if you list down 10 things it'll cost you and things you're going to miss out on if you do not achieve it, that'll create pain to push you. Those are really the only two drivers of human emotion, of human behavior. So if you do that, you will start to notice you have more drive. Lack of focus, right? Lack of focus, like we discussed, could be health related. Poor sleep, diet, exercise, or even a physical condition of ADD. If that's the case, look into that. Or it could be a lack of goals and reasons, right? If you're unfocused, that means you haven't given your brain the data of what to focus on. And how you do it is you write down the goal and then you emotionalize it. You add reasons why you must get there. You add their reasons why if you don't get there, it'll cost you this and that. Because emotion is what makes us kind of filter through things, right? If it's not important to you, you're unconsciously not really going to focus on it. On the other hand, if you literally obsess about it because you have so many emotional connections to it, well, you're automatically going to be pulled in that direction. Then there's the imposter syndrome. And the bottom line with this is you just want to understand that as long as you're one chapter ahead of your market, you can help them. Okay, you don't need to be the very best to compete. Otherwise, there'd be no competition. Right? Last one, shiny item hunter. So those who chase two rabbits catch none. So you just got to make a decision and stick to it. All these shiny items and advanced things, they're not the key to success. The key to success really lies in fundamentals and in sticking to one thing and doing it well. When you're really experienced, you've built successful businesses, yes, then maybe you can add a second or a third business and you can become a business magnate, or as Elon Musk likes to call himself, a business magnet. But, when people are starting out and whenever they tell me, yeah, I've got like these 7, income streams I'm working on, these 7 businesses, 9 out of 10, matter of fact, like 10 out of 10, I know they're broke. Because when you're starting out and you don't have that experience and and just the capital required and a bunch of these other things that you need to have to succeed. I mean, you saw the stats in the beginning of the video. 96% of businesses fail within 10 years. So what makes them think that they'll succeed at 10 businesses when most people struggle with making one work? Okay, start with one, get good at that one, and I promise you, I'm not gonna lock you in this for the rest of your life. Just start with that, make it work, and then when you're successful with it, you can start looking into other projects, etc. But trust me, if you want to get to 6, 7, 8 figures and beyond, one business is more than enough, and it can get you there. Matter of fact, one traffic source will get you there. One product can get you to 7 figures. I've done it, you can do it too. So keep that in mind, stay focused. Like I said, the whole point in this video is to get you more focused and to get you to perform at a higher level. So some of the closing thoughts. Look, I know this is a lot of things, and it literally took me 12 years to come up with this list of things, and it's still incomplete. There's a million things to this, right? Now, the beautiful thing is you do not have to master them all at once. If you just take 1 or 2 of these ideas and implement them, you can literally forget everything else, and you'll still make serious progress. You may be asking why? Well, because most folks don't even have 10% of these things dialed in. That's why most don't make any money. That's why most fail. And even the ones who do make a little bit of money, they often rely on luck, good timing, or high IQ. Let's face it, some of us have been blessed with that. And it can get you some of the way, it can get you some results, but you will not get into the big leagues without a holistic approach to optimize all aspects of your life, health, wealth, love, and happiness. I mean, if you think about it, this idea of what NBA players or top soccer players have to do to be amazing at their craft. It's not just about practicing soccer, even though that's number one, but they got a team of doctors and coaches walking everywhere with them to make sure their diet is on point, their sleep is on point, their mental health is on point, their relationships are on point, so they're not stressing out about something, right? It takes all of you to be at your best, okay? So it's really up to yourself. I mean, if you want to get to these high levels, 6, 7, 8 figures, you may be able to get to 5, 6 with just a little bit of talent, a little bit of luck, a little bit of IQ. But if you really want to get to the high levels and maintain it and sustain it and keep growing, you're eventually going to have to dial these things in. Your work system, workstation, your diet, exercise, sleep, mindset, etc., etc. And the combination will unlock unprecedented level of laser focus and performance that'll literally put 99% of the market in the dust. Because most people don't do this, and that's why most people don't get results. So, hope you enjoyed. This was Peter Szabo, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.